have those easels. He probably wants to be wired up. Where is he?
Down
Right
there.
on.
Yeah. Try not to bend that around too much.
Huh?
I don't know where he's going to put it. Maybe interested in your guy. I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, that's his good possibility.
I don't know.
Well, I can go in and open up right while he's coming.
Huh?
I said I can go in and open up. I just want to make sure he's here, but
Yeah, I'd make sure he's like.
I can't get that.
Okay. You need this mic? Well, I got it here at home.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. There it is.
Need to know before we start.
Oh, okay. Hi, do you want the wireless? You want the wireless mic? Yeah, there it is. I got a wireless mic.
Sure. Okay.
And then I'm going to introduce you, and then it's all yours.
All right. Do you want me up here or do you want me down here? Okay. All right.
Yeah, we'll have you use the podium.
Got you. Okay, okay. Yeah. All right. I don't want to mess up your roll here. time. Okay.
I can turn it up.
No, that's fine. My voice is pretty loud. I just want to make sure it's not too amplified. I tend to not like to use the mics.
Okay. All right, I'll give you a cue to start.
Okay.
I guess the button's down there for the slides.
It's right here.
Oh, look at that.
I told you.
I didn't even notice that, so I thought it was a pen.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paulette Holmes, and I would like to welcome all of you to our seminar on planning for Social Security retirement. I would also like to extend a warm welcome to those of you who are live streaming on CMS YouTube, as well as those who are viewing on VTC and audio conferencing. And those folks are at our regional offices and our outlying field offices. So welcome to all of you. What will you learn today? You will learn about how Social Security determines your benefits, how Social Security determines your earliest age for retirement or your full age for retirement, and much, much more. So our presenter today, Mr. Alfredo Padilla, he is geared up to bring you all a wealth of knowledge on today. So put on your seat belts, sit back, and get ready to learn a lot of options to plan for your Social Security retirement. So, but before we get started, I wanted to provide a few administrative notes, things that we need to bring to your attention. First of all, we want to ask everyone to please mute your phones for us. This will help us with the noise, the feedback, and any kind of distractions coming from the phone. So just keep them on mute for us. We do have phone monitors, so if we have questions or anything of that nature, the phone monitor will be able to assist us there. We're going to ask that you hold all of your questions until after the presentation or as directed by the presenter. So just pay attention to the presenter and regarding the questions, but normally we ask that you hold off asking until after the presentation. Be sure that you sign in for us before you leave. For those of you who are here in person, please sign in, and we want you to please to complete the survey questionnaire for us and provide those to the benefit specialists who are sitting out front at the tables. Please complete the survey questionnaire and sign in. And for those of you who are online and audio conferencing, you can call the HR Center Help Desk at 410-786-3936 if you need assistance with the survey questionnaire, how you may be able to get it. Or you can email the help desk at hrcenterhelpdesk@cms.hhs.gov. So for any questions or anything you may have for those who are on the lines, YouTubing, please contact the help desk, okay? That's the HR Center Help Desk. So now, without further delay, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our fabulous speaker on today, Mr. Alfredo Padilla, Jr. For over 9 years, Alfredo served and serves as a National Public Affairs Specialist in the Office of the Acting Commissioner, located right here in Baltimore, Maryland. In this role, he is responsible for performing educational outreach initiatives, and he promotes SSA's communication messages. Alfredo has also worked with the SSA in a variety of positions. He has been a supervisor. He has held the position of a management and program analyst, and just to name a few, these are some of the positions that he has also held. In 2007, he received the prestigious Silver Medal Award from the Federal Executive Board for Outstanding Public Service. Alfredo, He has a wife, and he has two beautiful daughters, Christina and Sabrina, and they live in Winchester, Maryland. So without further delay, please join me with a warm welcome in bringing forth Mr. Alfredo Padilla. Give him a warm CMS welcome.
Turn this on here. Good morning, everybody. Everybody can hear me fine? I'm gonna come down. I'm not a podium and stage person. I'm more interactive person. And everybody on the lines, and hopefully you can hear me well. Hopefully there's no static. My voice tends to project and whatnot, so I was making sure this mic wasn't too high. So today's session, I like to look at the session more as a memory jogger. I'm not a PowerPoint to death a person. Folks can see slides and read them. This is more I like the PowerPoint more to serve as a memory jogger for when we get into the meat and the potatoes, which is your questions. What are the concerns and what are the thoughts that you've had about retirement? And even if you're young, and if it's coming, years down the line, you still want to plan. You see a lot of financial planners on TV talking about, Social Security as one of the legs of, planning for your retirement. For many of the federal employees I speak to here in this area and going down to D.C., you're looking at Social Security being the 40% kind of replacement factor of your income when you're going into retirement. What does this mean for you? Well, you have to look at your financial situation. Is it worth for me to file at 62? Full retirement age, many of the baby boomers right now are at age 66 for full retirement age. And then you have individuals who, want the delayed retirement credits, which we'll get into talking about in a minute. That's age 70. So that's just to give you kind of like a synopsis of what that covers. And we'll go into the basics first. And if I can figure out, this is the actual little, I'm sorry for the folks on the phone, the little button for the PowerPoint here, it's actually, that's much better because this, is that a laser pointer?
Right.
Look at that, I'm going to be pointing a laser, I don't even need that. It looked like a pen, I thought that was kind of weird. So let's go into it. All right, so an earnings of quarters of coverage. So when you came in this morning, for the folks on the phone, we handed out some publications that we have available online. I'll tell you about that as we get towards the end of where to locate some of the publications we provided here in person today. So we'll gear you towards that. And if you have any questions, I'll provide my information and you can contact me on there. And for the folks here in the room, we handed out some of the publications I'm going to be highlighting that kind of give you some more information and detail depending on your situation, if you're under the FERS or if you're under CSRS, as far as the civil service system, or your CSRS offset, or you were CSRS and then went to FERS. So those questions, if you have about how that interacts with the Social Security retirement benefit, we'll have that discussion in the open part. But the basics. This year, 2014, quarter coverage, $1,200 for each quarter coverage. The max you can get in a year is 4 quarters of coverage. For this year, $4,800. We'll give you 4 quarters of coverage. I like to mention this especially to some of our folks who may be CSRS and before their life into public service and government, they may have worked and earned, and some folks I've spoken to, have 30 quarters, 34 quarters. They may be shy of very few quarters to get to that 40 quarters of coverage. And why do I talk about that being important and mention this basic information is because, okay, we're going to talk about the windfall elimination provision when we get a little further, but just to take in consideration, this is, if you look at the dollar amount, it's a small dollar amount. So if you're shy on quarters of coverage, when we get to the wet part, we're going to talk about a little in a minute. We'll come back to this and we'll talk about it. So these are the basics, really, to get your 40s coverage. So 10 years of work is going to give you your 40s quarters of coverage. So more than likely in the beginning of your career, you're going to have that quarters of coverage already earned. Now, what we look at when we calculate your actual benefit, so main thing is the top 35 years. We look at the top 35 years of your earnings to actually calculate your retirement benefit, whether if it's at age 62, full retirement age, which can be between 66 and 67 for folks, and then age 70 with the delayed retirement credits. Now, many folks ask, well, what happens if I have some 0 years in those top 35? Will that count against me? Yes, it does count against you. However, it's not, a full wash. I mean, the more years you pay into the system, those 0 years that you may have from the past will eventually, come off of that computation that's done. Some of the questions folks ask, well, what happens if I retire? I'm collecting my Social Security. I get offered a job to work, and I'm making pretty good money. Will my benefit go up? The answer is yes. Your benefit would go up if you went back into the workforce after retirement, because as you continue to pay in the system, we put that into your record, and we actually have an automated process in place that we computate the benefits for folks who are already on the rolls. And this is separate from what is known as the cost of living increase that's done in December. This actually is done between October and November of each year. Folks, let's say they're 66, 67. They're collecting benefits, been collecting benefits. They're working, making, let's say, $40,000, $50,000 a year. They have some years where there's either zeros on the record or lower earnings, and even matching with indexing and bringing to inflation to today's dollar and everything. It gives them a little bump on their Social Security benefit. So what will happen is, in that part of the year, we'll do the computation. The spring, usually April, May, we'll send a letter out, and we'll indicate, hey, we reviewed your record. You've earned, your earnings have made a difference. We'll pay you $15, $20 more a month. I mean, that right now you may say, well, that's only, a couple of dollars here and there, but, if you continue to work and we're sending you a letter every couple of years saying, hey, we're going to pay you more, that makes a difference. I'm not going to turn down $20. I'll take it, maybe that's, just, so in the synopsis, when you're looking at this, in some of our literature, some folks go, well, how do you do the calculation? How do you do the computation? One thing I like to indicate to folks is, if you're a mathematician, you want to do the manual comps, hey, go right ahead. I mean, I've worked with folks who are in the actuary office. I've done presentations right at our own office down the block. And we've had people in seminars, and they go, well, why do you refer folks to the benefit calculator? The comps are not that hard. Well, if you're technical and you want to play with, bend points that they call them, and, when you're going to break even and all that stuff, I mean, hey, go for it. We have the information so you can do it manually. But one thing I like to indicate to folks is, using our benefit calculators, which I'll show you the link in a minute. This chart right here, and I'm hoping the folks that are watching and listening in, we put a full retirement age chart to kind of give you a perspective of, folks in the baby boomer generation and then beyond. So anybody after 1960 doesn't have a 66 or months attached to it. It's just a flat age 67. So I fall in that range. I'm in the 67 range. So and that's that's how it stands right now. So this has been kind of like this for. So most of the folks that we've been talking to have been between the 43 and 1954 range. But we've been talking to younger audiences, and the importance of talking to even younger audiences is to make sure that they know the importance of planning for your future, because it's sometimes we look at our parents and we're thinking, oh man, it's there for them now, and then when it comes to my age, it's not going to be there for. And I've worked with a couple of folks in the agency who started back in the 60s, been with the agency for over 50 years, and they were telling me back in the 70s, they were saying the same thing. Social Security won't be there when I get there. So, long and short of that, when you have over 58 million people on benefits, I think we'll have no problem with the benefits continuing for years to come. Okay, so we get to the point where, what's the earliest age? 62 is the earliest age folks can file for retirement. Of course, there's a permanent reduction at age 62. What that reduction is, you're looking at about 25% of what you would get between the age of 62 and your full retirement age. Some folks ask, especially our federal employees, colleagues I've spoken to over the years, well, I'm leaving at age 59 under FERS, and they say I should file at 62 for Social Security retirement. It's not mandatory, it's voluntary if you wanted to do that at 62. Many folks talk about, well, does Social Security offset my first pension because at 62 my first pension drops a certain amount? And that's because one of the things I like to point out is some folks at 59, they'll get the first supplemental payments up until the age of 62. So it's not necessarily the first pension being reduced, it's just the supplement stops at age 62. And that's something I like to point out to our federal colleagues because it's sometimes a misconception that, hey, you know, my first is going to be reduced because of Social Security being eligible at 62. 62 is still the earliest age you can receive. You will have a reduction on the Social Security part. The decision is it worth financially for me to do it at 62, to wait till full retirement age? Is that difference in the supplement you're going to lose, for example, for that on the first, you know, a deal breaker where you need to file at 62 for that additional benefit through Social Security? So those are decisions you have to make. I always recommend using our benefit calculator, which I'll show you the link in just a minute. Then you have a full retirement age, that's 100% unreduced amount. If you have a dependent spouse, whether if it's male or female, they're due 50% off of your record at full retirement age. If they filed at 62, 37.5% off of what's payable on your record. Doesn't affect what you get monthly, that's what they would get. And then the delayed retirement credits, approximately 8% each year after your full retirement age. Some folks do that. They want to receive the extra 20, 30% at age 70. That's another option. And then just gives you a breakdown we just talked about. And then we get into who else can get Social Security benefits. We talked about spouses. If you have a dependent spouse, or let's say you decide, well, I've heard in the, you know, some discussions, and you may have heard of this, of financial advisors. They go, well, can you explain to me I don't know if you've heard this, the file and suspend strategy. And this is where individuals at full retirement age will file, suspend, and then file off of their spouses. And folks say, can you do that? It's a loophole in our policy, and financial planners and advisors have gotten wind of it and have taken advantage. So that is a beast and an animal that does exist. It's not publicized by our agency, but it's a common question I do receive from many of our colleagues. So I always like to mention it does exist, and it is possible where folks at full retirement age can file and then suspend, and then later on they get the delayed retirement credits at age 70, but they collect it off of their spouse in the meantime. But one has to be at least full retirement age in order to take advantage of that strategy. There was another strategy many folks some folks, not many, which was the withdrawal retirement application. This is where folks were collecting benefits, had other unearned income, you know, capital gains, rental income that didn't involve physical work, where they got a 1099. And then when they got to age 70, they were paying back all the benefits back to the agency, withdrawing their application, so they could then get the retirement, full delayed retirement credits. And really, they were, you know, they had coined it on some of the media as like a free loan from Social Security. So that loophole has been closed, and we changed the regulations and modified some things. But there was a really small percentage, but became a political hot potato, unfortunately, in our agency. So that's another one that used to be popular out there. But right now, the one that's still being utilized by some folks, and questions I get in many of the conferences I go to, is the file and suspend strategy. So that does exist, and if you had questions about that, we can discuss that after the session, because that's a little more in detail, and I don't want to confuse anybody about that. So divorced spouses benefits, that one's a very popular one. Why is it popular? Because we have what's called independently divorced spouses benefits. So this means you have a spouse you're divorced from, they're not collecting Social Security, but you want to file for, off of their record, you can do that. They don't have to file just because they haven't filed for benefits yet. If you're of retirement age, at least 62, even if they're not collecting, you can file off of their record as an independently divorced spouse. And even if they got remarried and whatnot, you can still be able to draw off that record and, in essence, delay your benefit for a later date. So that's, you know, something that's asked and discussed. Let's say you had children later in life. So you have retirement age, you say you're going to collect Social Security, you have a couple of children that are teenagers or preteens, can they get Social Security? Sure, they can get Social Security. They can actually get benefits through 19 and 2 months if they're still in high school attendance, off of your record, as dependents. Many of the questions, folks, well, then doesn't it go actually through college? Well, that changed in 1983. Before 1983, children that were on receiving dependent benefits or even survivor benefits used to get benefits all the way through the age of 22. Usually when they were in college. That changed in 83. So one of the things I always like to point out is it goes as far as 19 and 2 months if they're still in full-time high school attendance. Many of the children usually stops around 18 when they do finish high school. And then there's always exceptions to the rules. And when it comes to disabled children and disabled adult children, other programs that are available. You do have some cases where the person collecting or the spouse of the dependent spouse can also collect mother's benefits up until age 16, even though they're not retirement age. But then that falls off, and then the child continues to get that benefit on the retiree's record, or if it's disabled as well. And we talked about this divorced spouses. There's a criteria: married at least 10 years, and then the discussion of collecting off of their record and how you're eligible and whatnot. Okay, so let's just think most recently there was an HR release from OPM that talked about phased retirement. I was reading up that looks like they're trying to promote that within federal agencies. I know our agency is currently reviewing it. This could be something to look at depending on where you're at in the retirement planning path. You may want to completely retire from the government, or you may be looking at this phased retirement. If you're looking into phased retirement going into part-time, this would be an important piece to decide whether or not you should file at 62 for retirement age, depending on what the income amount is going to be. Just because you see these income limits, for example, this is the income limits for this year. We handed out a fact sheet. It's called and I'm announcing for the folks online. It's called Update 2014, and usually around December, before the beginning of the year, we release the new one. So Update 2015 will be available probably towards the end of the year. But I handed out today the Update 2014. Kind of gives you the figures of the amount of credits you need, the earnings amount, and the earnings limit. So just because you see these earnings limit doesn't necessarily mean, well, if you're under the full retirement age and I make over the $15,000 and change, I'm not going to get any Social Security checks. That's not how it works. And to break it down much easier, you have the one for every $2, and when you get to the full retirement age area, the one for every $3. And then after that, it's unlimited. It's not an issue anymore. The best way I like to explain this is you use our benefit calculator, or an even easier essence, if you find out what your monthly benefit's going to be, you simply take that amount, write it down, because you're going to need that. Take this amount. Let's say it's let's go with the under full retirement age amount. So it's $15,480. So you have the $15,480. You say, I'm going to make $40,000 this year. That's going to be my part-time salary. So we'll take the $40,000, subtract it from the 15, divide that by 2, and then divide that by the monthly benefit amount that you're getting. That'll give you the total number of checks we're going to withhold for the year. So some folks we withhold for 5 checks, maybe just 1 check. All depends on what your monthly Social Security amount is. That's the whole breakdown of the one for every $2. So instead of trying to figure that out, you just really take the figures, and if you use your benefit calculator, it'll do it for you, what I just explained manually. And that'll give you the amounts. And then usually for folks coming into the full retirement age, so let's say your full retirement age is April of this year. So between January through April, the $41,000 is the amount we're looking at. After April, any other income after that doesn't count against you. So if you made $80,000 for that year, but really only 35 of it was between the beginning of the year through your month of full retirement age. That's all we're looking at. So in essence, you could really earn the higher amount for the year and not be counted against you, because we're going to make an input on our system to indicate your time period that you earned that first amount, and then the rest of it is excluded because you're already over full retirement age for the other set of the income. So that's something I like to explain. That's the whole breakdown of the one for every $3. That's the way I like to look at it, because you have to put it in perspective of where I sit in the part of the year. You know, how is this going to impact me if, you know, when it comes to doing the finances? And you have to put in perspective the months of the year and then figure out that breakdown. And our benefit calculator and what if scenarios that you can put in can actually help you with that, which is pretty good to use. We'll move on to our next screen here. Okay, well, I mentioned this just a little bit in the beginning. What income do we count? Of course, Uncle Sam likes to tax on everything. For the purpose of Social Security, that's not how we do things. Our way for looking at what counts for the earnings limit is actual W-2 earnings, or if you're self-employed, it'd be the 1040 Schedule C, which is the part of the self-employment for reporting income and paying Social Security tax on it as well. As you can tell, this kind of gives you an idea. You know, rental income, if you have income from the stock market or some kind of savings plan or other pensions or retirement that you pay taxes on, you know, they're covered earnings, it's not going to be an issue. If you get it, pretty much, if you get a 1099 on it, it's not going to be an issue for our purposes when it comes to earned income. We're going to look at that as unearned income. Now, for Uncle Sam, that's a different story. And that's where we have the option. Some individuals that I used to see in the field office that would come into the local office, they used to have what was called the W-4 withholding. And this is a withholding where you have, I believe it's between, I think it's 7.15 and 25%. You can actually have a portion of your Social Security benefits withheld. So that way, when it comes to tax time, and this I would advise to check with your whoever does your taxes, if you have, you know, someone like H&R Block or Jackson Hewitt or just someone that does taxes for you, or if you're savvy yourself with taxes, that's fine too. I'm not, you know, I don't venture too much. I have someone actually do it because I'm lazy when it comes to that. Now, the W-4 form, you know, it's an option where if you see it's going to affect your income or joint income, if you're in a couple situation when you file your taxes, we do have a form that you can fill out. We put in our system, and we would withhold a certain amount of your Social Security benefit. Doesn't mean that we're keeping your Social Security benefits. We're just assisting with the issue when it involves paying taxes and whatnot. So you can check that more information about, you know, W-4 withholding on our actual socialsecurity.gov website, and we have actual frequently asked question that addresses that. If you have any questions about that, we can talk about that as well. So moving forward. So as you know, Social Security, like I mentioned before, you know, it's not just retirement. You have for children that receive off of record as survivor benefits, you know, for folks who are divorced, widowers, you know, you have disability. One of the common questions folks ask, well, I'm 62, I have a disability, you know, can I file for retirement and disability at the same time? The answer is yes. There are folks who come in and say, you know, I want to file for disability. I've had an ongoing condition that stopped me from working, but I am retirement age. And what we do is we actually take two claims. We take a retirement claim, start paying them the benefits right away. And while their disability claim is pending, if and when it's awarded, then they receive the disability benefit. And why is that important? I'm saying all of that. Well, this is, you know, you're getting your benefits 62. If you then and it's a reduced amount. If they get qualified for the disability benefits, we're really taking them to their full retirement age, so we're going to pay them a full retirement benefit at that earlier age without the reduction. So that's, you know, so they got the reduced benefit at 62, but then once they get approved for a disability claim, even at that age, they get converted over, receive that full benefit, and then at age 65, Medicare coverage would still kick in the same, so that wouldn't be a difference. And then for our record purposes, we would convert them back over to retirement, but it wouldn't change the actual monthly benefit amount. So, Social Security is an extensive program. And as I said, we have the survivors. One other thing I like to mention when it comes to widow's benefits, we do get cases where we have disabled individuals filing for benefits, and they can do that between the ages of 50 and 60, what we call a prescribed period of eligibility, because it has to be, kind of close to the time or around the time period the person passed away to qualify for the benefits at an early age. Now, widow benefits is still at age 60. You get that amount, and some folks will file for the widows, and then later on, file on their own record for a higher benefit. That's something that depends on the individual situation to look at. Okay, so dirty word of the day: the windfall elimination provision, what we like to call WEP. So for folks who are maybe CSRS or had partial CSRS or partial non-covered earnings, it may not even be CSRS, it may have worked for the state, or there's some states that have tax withholding for Social Security, some that don't. So one of the things I like to point out, and I handed it out, is a fact sheet that has an actual chart. And for folks on the line, if you see there's a publication number, and I'll just kind of repeat it for you. It's publication, you would type in SSA, and then the 05-145. That'll take you to an actual fact sheet that'll give you the breakdown of, you would look at your earnings record and compare it to the chart to see if you have any years that would be eliminated. Because there are individuals who, let's say, are under CSRS, but decide to have a separate job outside of government. They may work at a university or provide advisory services or on some kind of another line of work. And they pay Social Security tax. They made a significant amount of earnings to have coverage and be covered under Social Security. So therefore, even though they're under CSRS, but because of this other employment, actually eliminated them from being offset because of their CSRS non-covered pension or earnings that were not covered because they had this other employment that actually, kind of canceled that out. So that chart is always helpful to look at and to figure out. We also have on our website, besides the benefit estimator and benefit calculators, is we actually have a WEP. If you type in WEP on our website, calculator, you'll actually get the calculator for the windfall elimination provision to actually do the computation to see how much possibly your Social Security benefit could be reduced. It wouldn't be reduced to zero. It'll be reduced to a certain amount, but not to $0. I think the most I've seen being reduced on a per individual's check is between $350 and $400, but that would be the complete extreme amount of reduction on an individual's record. So you still get a certain amount. Some people do get upset, and it's understandable. But I try to make positive light of it. I say, well, you're going to get only $200, let's say, but hey, that'll cover your Part B of Medicare coverage because you're going to need to sign up for that, and you won't get billed, every quarterly by CMS to send a bill, so we can take it out of your monthly Social Security check on that part. Now, the government pension offset. This is an actual offset for, and I like to point this out, this is for dependent spouses of a record. And what do we mean by that? So, I'm CSRS, let's say, receiving a pension, and my spouse wants to get off of my record. They're also CSRS, they're receiving a pension. Depending on what their pension is for their record, will be cut by 2/3. So when we calculate what they're getting in their CSR pension to collect off of my record, just as a straight Social Security, paying into the system without the CSRS, make a correction, without the CSRS, if their amount is higher, they could be not eligible as a dependent spouse off of, let's say, my record. For an individual, that's not the case. That would be what we just talked about prior. This is only if you're a dependent spouse collecting off a record of a spouse that is not civil service or have non-covered earnings. They did pay into the system and looking into collecting as a spouse off of the record. So that's one of the conceptions I always like to point out. Okay, you probably remember these that used to go out in the mail. There's the Social Security statement, white form with a little green line, used to get every year around your birthday. That stopped now for the past couple of years. And we've been pretty much going around the country to do what's called the My Social Security account. And you probably saw one of these outside. And we were attempting to, but we had some IT problems. We had brought a couple of laptops to do it here. You've probably seen one of these little cards. Now, the My Social Security account, to give you an idea, these are for any individual over the age of 18. So if you paid into the system, even at a very young age, creating your My Social Security account will actually help you as far as your financial planning, because you'll be able to actually get to see your earnings record in real time, what you've paid in, see the earnings history in real time. You'll see what you would get at age 62, like we discussed, age full retirement age, and also at age 70. It'll also give you a breakdown of survivor benefits, children's benefits, and then all the way at the bottom, it'll actually give you a breakdown of how much Medicare and Social Security taxes you paid over your lifetime thus far into the system. If you're already on benefits, the advantages of having your My Social Security account is you'll be able to obtain your benefit letters. Sometimes, some organizations request that you provide how much you get in Social Security monthly benefits. You may have misplaced your 1099 when you do your taxes. Having the My account will provide that for you. You could be able to print it out right away off of the record, without having to go to the field office or calling our 800 number to do that. You'll be able to see us right online, plug in. We're also working on, for individuals not on the rolls, not on the benefits, is to do SSN Social Security number replacement cards, actually online. So as this gets geared up in the coming years, they'll have more and more services available for those on the rolls and for folks not on the rolls yet. So the main advantage for individuals not on the rolls is setting up an account, seeing your earnings record, because the earlier you detect that you have incorrect earnings posted on your record, the easier it's going to be later on, because at this time you will have your W-2s to contact us and say, hey, you have a 0 year on this record. You need to fix my earnings. Well, that's fine. We'll take a copy of the W-2 you bring in, post the earnings correctly, and then later on you won't have to worry about that. And then usually the spring, you'll be able to see, usually after taxes, you'll be able to see the new posted earnings on your record and keep track of how your earnings are being posted on your record, because that's really important. Some folks say, well, I'm only 30-something, and should I need an account? And I said, yeah, because are you going to remember 20 years from now or save that W-2 from when you were in your 30s that are now missing or were incorrectly posted? I've had individuals that we were doing the sign-ups, and they said, wait a minute, my earnings weren't $15,000, they were $35,000. Well, luckily the person noticed that. They're 28 years old, and they still had their W-2 from last year, the year before. So they went ahead, we set them up and go to the local office and fix that as well. When I was in the field office, before we had the actual My Social Security account, I had an individual who came into the office, and she said, I showed her, we always show the whole earnings record to make sure everything's fine. And she goes, I worked in 1973. I said, well, we can try to scout for the earnings and look for. She goes, no, I saved my W-2s. I saved every year I've worked. And she brought them in, and it made a $25 difference a month in her monthly benefit check. And that was her earnings from 1973. But because as an agency we index and inflate those earnings and put them into the record, it made a difference. So having the My Social Security account, you'll be able to look at that each year and keep track. Because since we're not sending out those statements, yes, there's been talk. They're trying to reinstate it, so it would go out every 5 years. But that's still, right now, in the works. It's still being talked about. The question becomes, if it's that important to you, is it beneficial to create my account? And I handed out a flyer, folks, for you on the line and on the phone. It's a My Social Security, and the title of it is How to Create an Online Account. And with this, it gives you a couple of screenshots forward and back. And if you really go into directly our socialsecurity.gov website, you'll be able to see the little icon. It has a little picture of a lock, and you can create your account, and with that, see your earnings record in real time, and also be beneficial if you have uncovered earnings and you're looking at the web chart, the WP chart, the windfall elimination chart with the earnings. You can look at your earnings record, compare it, take those figures, and actually plug it into our, estimating your benefits and looking at that. And this is just kind of a screenshot of the retirement application homepage of how it looks like. With having the My Account, you'll be able to easily link over and go into that to do that as well. Now, here on the if you go to our socialsecurity.gov website and do /estimator and typing that in. But I also handed out a fact sheet that talks about what you can do online. I think it's also on your handouts as well, but I brought them in just in case. So we have a fact sheet called What You Can Do Online. For folks on the line, we'll make sure that we'll coordinate with our folks over here to send you the links to the direct publication that were provided today, so that way you can have that. That way, that'll save you some time from digging around the actual website. So we talked about, if you have an email address, many of us already have an email address, so that's one of the pieces you need when you're creating a My Social Security account. You live in the U.S., and you have a Social Security number, so that should not be an issue. And we talked about my recommendation, if you are creating a My Social Security account, is wait until you actually create the account, and then if you wanted to add an extra layer of security to the account, go ahead and do that once you set up the account, because I've come into some folks have tried to set up an account, they'll put the extra layer of security, they get kicked out, and don't even let them go to the next part with their security identifying questions on that. Now, one thing we didn't cover, and I purposely didn't cover because coming here, was the Medicare coverage, when to sign up for Medicare and what's involved in that. I'd like to, instead of going into details on that, if there are questions about, depending on what component, what section you work within CMS, I didn't want to bog you down with information that you may or may not know, so I wanted to leave that more as an open dialogue for individuals here in the audience, and also if there's any questions on our line. So these are the various methods. We have our National 800 number. We have our TTY number, and as well as our online services. And then, of course, we have our field offices around the country. So if you wanted to locate a field office of where to visit, you could easily go to our main website, type in your zip code, and it would tell you who your servicing office is. Just because it's your servicing office, if you choose to go to another field office, that is always up to you. I mean, that's always your option to go to any office you want around the country. I will tell you, if you do file for benefits online and you have to do something or interact with that office, it will go to the office that you put on your mail, whatever mailing address and zip code you put when you file your application. If you're recontacted or contacted, it'll be by the office that services that address. So you want to just be mindful of that. I always like to point that out because there are individuals who file for benefits but then are actually moving down south or other parts of the country where they're planning to retire. So I just like to point that out. When you do decide to retire, make sure you're going to put in the address that you're going to be at, so that way if you have to go into the office for any reason, you have the convenience that the servicing office that you're going to be living by is going to have access to that case and be able to assist you in any way instead of causing any delay for your benefits and whatnot. And another common question a lot of folks ask, well, I'm not going to retire here in the U.S. I'm going to Central America. And there's many people, we have many expats that go to Central America and receive their benefits down there with no problem. In fact, we have Social Security is partnered with the embassies around the globe. We actually have an actual office in, let's say, San Jose, Costa Rica. We have, American Benefits Department in the capital, Guatemala. We have a place we have a couple of places in Mexico. And we have some even, going into Europe. I believe we have a Greece and UK office. So we have offices, and also South America. We do have another one down there. Just because you leave the country and want to retire somewhere else doesn't mean you can't get your Social Security benefits. I only believe we have a couple of countries on our list. We have it on our website. Where you would not be eligible. One of them I know for sure is Cuba, being Cuban myself. So that's that. And I think there's a couple other countries. We do have a list of that. I don't want to say which are the other ones. I just happen to know that one off the top of my head. So without further ado, I don't know how much time we have. Dr. Holmes, how much time do we have for? We have time to open the questions to the audience. Okay. All right. So we have a mic here. I'd like to share the mic because I know we have folks on the line, and so this is working right here. So I'll go over here. You had a question over here? Come over here. Oh, do you have a question first? Okay.
My question, well, I have more than one question.
Okay, well, let's share your first question if you want to put the mic close to you so everybody can hear you, because we're also on the live broadcast. We want to make sure.
Okay, you did cover Social Security of widow benefits, but if the widow has remarried, how does that play out?
Okay, so the question is, what happens if the widow remarries? Well, if they've met the criteria of being married for the 10 years, they can still file off with the other record if the benefit's payable at a higher amount. So that is the question. If I'm married 10 years, I'm a widow, and now I remarry after 10 years, is that going to affect me? So that wouldn't be an issue because you've met the 10-year criteria. The other thing, now the one thing we will look at is, are you going to get a higher amount off of that, deceased spouse's record? And we're going to sit with you and look at both records and see, provide you with the best options and pretty much lay it out for you to see what's going to be the decision you want to make, whether if you want to file for that record and then later on file off of the other record as well. So great question. Thank you. Our next question.
Yes. You mentioned Medicare. That you'd be willing to answer a Medicare question also. So it's my understanding that you're supposed to file for Medicare if you don't want to get a penalty 3 months before your age 65. But it's also my understanding that if you're 65 or over and you're still working, then there's no penalty until what? When do you apply, and how is the process for applying for Medicare different if you're still working at 65 or over?
Okay, all right. Okay, so just to clarify for everybody in the audience, what gentleman just mentioned right now that's been talked about for the Medicare. We have, of course, the two parts of Medicare. Part A, which is your hospital insurance. The Part B is the supplemental one. That's the one where we charge the monthly premium. I think right now it's about $106 or $107 a month, and that'll probably change soon. Hopefully not. Maybe it'll stay in the same area. That'll be great. But the Part A, we always recommend folks before the age of 65 to a couple of months beforehand. We actually have a Medicare-only application. If you're still working, you can refuse the Part B. There's no limit on the period of time that you can refuse the Part B. You would sign up for the A because that's not going to be charged out of anything. I mean, as far as you already paid into that. The Part B is the one where folks run into whether or not they need to sign up at 65, in their time period. But if you're still working and you're covered under a group health plan, and you're still actually working, or you're under your spouse's record who is still working, one of the individuals has to be working. As far as it has to be active employment connected with the group health coverage in order to take advantage of what's called the special enrollment period. So what does that mean? Well, when you file for the Medicare, you have your 7 months kind of grace period to file for your Medicare benefits. However, after that, you go into the initial enrollment, which is January through March, and then the coverage starts that July. For special enrollment, and the word special would be, let's say you decide you're retired at 75. You've been on Medicare Part A all that time. You refused that Part B, those 10 years. You would contact us. We give you a form. You take to the personnel office. They fill it out of when your coverage will end. And at that time, we'll start you off on your Part B so you don't have a lapse of coverage, that would eliminate the 10% for every year of not taking the Part B. So I hope that answers the question. So, okay. We have a modification to the question.
Well, you know, so let's say if you're working up to that age 75, right? I assume that's what you meant.
Exactly.
That the person's working until they reach 75, so there would be no penalty. But what is there like a different form to do that since he or she is over 65? Is there a different process for applying for Part B?
There wouldn't be a different process because they're already on the Part A. So it's just a form to elect the Part B.
Okay, so how critical is it that one apply for Part A before they're 65, or is that?
Well, you want to sign up for the Part A at 65 because you're going to, in most case scenarios, health insurance companies are going to be asking you, have you signed up for Medicare? I mean, they're going to be you're going to get hit with mail and literature and whatnot. So at least signing up for the Part A, you'll have that, and then the Part B. At that time, you'll make the decision, do I want to take or refuse the Part B? And the special enrollment form is just an additional form that a personnel office would fill out. So I hope that does answer that. Okay. And we have another question over here?
We do. Yes.
Okay.
If you don't have your W-2s from way back when, are those years just washed or what?
No, there are case scenarios where I personally have seen it. We have individuals who do come in who unfortunately may not have their W-2s from 20-some years ago. However, many times there have been issues where the wrong Social Security number or the spelling of the name or something didn't match in our records. So therefore, we had to put it into what's called our suspense file. And we're able to go into our system and do what's called a scouting. So you would come and see us when we take your claim and you say, well, I do recall I worked at such and such place these years. It should have been on my record. What can I do? And I don't have a W-2. We'll go into our database and do a search in our suspense file. When I used to do them, it used to take about a week or two to get the information back because some of the stuff is on. They're working on this. I know it's going to sound funny, but a lot of our stuff for many years have been on microfiche. You remember that term, microfiche. Now, you probably don't hear that anymore. But many of our stuff on our earnings record goes back that far. And so we request it. It goes to our upstate Pennsylvania area. And they pull it out of some file in a cave and, kind of load it into the system. And then they send the information to us in the field office. So they're working on transferring that onto more digital stuff. But it's a long process, and they're still working on it. So we would do that. So it's not a complete wash when it comes to that.
You should start that process ASAP.
Yeah, if there's an issue, regardless if you're filing or not filing for benefits, if there's earnings missing on your record and you need to fix that, contact us. There's no sense of waiting until later on. Just because you're not filing for benefits collecting, anytime there's a discrepancy on your earnings record, come and see us. Bring your W-2 if you have them. If you don't, if they're missing on your record and you can't locate it, and it's been over the 7-year period IRS allows, because they, I think, keep records for about 7 years. So that's the other aspect. After 7 years, I believe they're not buying to keep those records. So, there are some options to look at. We have a question over here?
Yes, I have a question with two married individuals.
Okay.
And it's a rumor. I'm just wanting to clarify it. If the first spouse reaches age to where they can get benefits, and the second spouse, does the second spouse get a reduced amount?
Okay,
Is that only in the case, what I've read, because I'm on socialsecurity.gov.
Yeah.
And what I've read is you would have, the first spouse would have to wait until they reach full retirement age in order for the second spouse not to get a reduced amount. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the question is, you have a couple, they're both, let's say they're both, age 62, and they're looking at, and now one of the spouses in this case scenario is a dependent spouse.
No. If both spouses are married and one spouse reaches the eligibility age before the second spouse,
Mm-hmm.
say if the spouse goes and gets applies before 67, does the other spouse get a reduced amount?
Well, the spouse, okay, so I'm sorry, let me just rephrase that question. One spouse is 62, wants to retire at age 62. The other one has not reached 62, and then comes to the age of 62, wants to file off the record. They will get a reduced benefit off of the spouse's record. And you're talking about if the other spouse were to wait at full retirement age, but if they're 62, they still would get the reduced benefit.
I'm not saying even at 62. Like, I know some people that can't wait until 67
Mm-hmm.
and say they want to apply at 65 at the same time they get Medicaid.
Yeah.
With the second spouse, because that first spouse didn't wait until full retirement age, with that second spouse coming up on, say if your spouse is 5 or 6 years younger than you, and they're coming to get their benefit, would they get a reduced amount because the first spouse didn't wait until full retirement age?
No, see with the spouse like you're talking about, if I understand correctly, if they're full retirement age, the other spouse, because we're going to look at the payable amount on the record, so we're going to treat that individual. They're going to be reduced at their age. I think the case scenario actually is not necessarily the spouse's benefit. Widow's benefit gets impacted by the scenario you're inclining to. There are individuals who do try to figure out the fact if they were to file under the full retirement age, they pass away, then the spouse that wants to collect off of the record, would get the full benefit, but at their reduced amount rate, because that could happen. So there is that scenario, and I can send you information that. So if you get a hold of me after here, I'll give you a link.
So it doesn't affect both living spouses at all?
No, it's a little different. It's kind of a little tricky, and I like to pull that off on the side to give you the information.
I mean, you know the old Verma that retired.
Oh, yeah.
Senior citizens get divorced.
Exactly.
And live in sin, so they can get both Social Security.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, there's what you're talking about, so that's a great question, and we'll pull that for you, so that's no problem. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have an easier question. This is really easy, but it's one that I need to ask. You retire before your full retirement age. Are you obligated to notify Social Security of your intention to collect at the age of 66 plus 4 months? That's me. Mm-hmm. Or can you wait until you are at 66 plus 4 months? And the other question is it any benefit by waiting longer? Say when you're 75, you go, okay, I think I want to...
No, perfect,
Okay.
right there.
Right.
Age 70 is the cutoff. And after age 70, you're losing your money because you're not going to get anything more than that after that. So there's been individuals who come in after age 70 and say, well, don't I get more money? It's, yeah, you do up to age 70, so you've lost out on this amount of benefits. And if we're able to, when we take the application, we try to take them back, if possible, to an earlier date so they don't lose out on that money. So that's a great question. Anything under the full retirement age, we would look at, you may say, well, if I did it at 66 and then wait the 4 months, how much of a difference is that going to make? You can take, when you create your My Social Security account, you're going to see the amounts you get between the different ages. Use our benefit estimator, plug in the what-if scenario like you just proposed, and that'll tell you. It'll actually give you a benefit figure close to, because when you look at the 62 and let's say the 66 in 4 months and 70, you'll see the different figures you get. and then using our estimator to do the what-if scenario will then give you a better ballpark figure. Well, is it worth the $5 difference? You know, I'm just, you know, I'm being, you know, I'm going on a small scale. But if it makes a bigger difference, you may say, oh, it makes a $75 a month difference. Is it financially worth it for me to wait just a couple of more months to get the higher benefit?
Okay, Alfredo, we're going to take 2 more, and
Okay.
then we're going to get the folks on the phones.
All right, great.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm retired military, and I heard that you get credit for the time that you spent in the military wartime. Are you going to elaborate on that a little bit?
That's a great question. Gentleman in the room just mentioned a question about what's called gratuity credits. Now, gratuity credits were for military personnel who served in the military in active duty before 1957. During those years before 1957, active military didn't pay into Social Security. After 1957, all active military did pay into Social Security. Therefore, the gratuity credits actually, the generation of folks who fall in that range are Korean War and prior, going to World War II, if anything. That's the group of individuals who were in that area. If you're active military right now and are receiving a retirement benefit from military, that's not going to have any bearing on your Social Security retirement because you paid Social Security taxes on your military benefit. So I hope that answers your question when it comes to as far as gratuity credits, because that's the credit you're talking about. That's actually going back to several generations before. But if you were active military in these years, you've paid Social Security tax, so there's no offset, there's no issue with that. You get your military pension and you get your Social Security benefit. Does that answer your question, sir? Or is... Mm-hmm. Okay, let me rephrase your question, sir. I think the question you were asking is the service comp date when it comes to federal employment. So, because you're saying, because there is another scenario where if you were active military and you come into civilian federal employment, you know, the comp time that you got when you were active military gets, you know, calculated into your service comp date. Yeah, but that's for federal employment. That's separate from the Social Security benefit amount. That has those two systems that you're talking about, or that would play more into your service comp date, you know, first benefits and the pensions from the agency you're at as a civilian. Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. So the gentleman just asking, he's read literature on our website. So what I'll do for you and for also the audience for clarification, I will, as part of the links that we're going to be sending out after this, we'll include that, and I'll make sure I have that for you just so we can clarify that. And then I'll give you my information so if you want to have any other questions to talk about that, we'll cover that for you. So we have one more question in the room, and then we'll go on to the line. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I have a two-part question.
Okay.
Part one, you mentioned countries, those who have intentions of retiring outside of the United States.
Uh-huh.
I happen to be one of those.
All right.
So to determine if the country I plan to retire in qualifies to where I can reside and receive benefits, is that dependent upon whether they have a U.S. embassy? Does that make it automatic?
No. Actually, perfect good question. Actually, the issue becomes if I think it has to do with diplomatic ties.
Okay.
So, like for example, Cuba, you know, we have the embargo
Right.
that's been trying to get lifted and all that. So because of the communism and all that fun stuff there. And with a couple other countries, possibly I don't know if Iran. I believe Iran is still on there. So we have an
very
actual.
few.
There's very few, but we do have a list. And what I'll do is, since you have that interest, and there may be other folks that have that interest,
Right.
I'll send that link
Okay.
on there, so folks can see what countries where you can reside and still receive benefits from Social Security.
Okay. Second part.
Yes.
Pretty easy.
Sure.
Is there a comprehensive guide to Social Security, hard copy, even if it's for purchase, that I can put my hands on?
Well, actually, the booklet I brought over today called Understanding the Benefits gives you an overview of all our programs. And we have that right out here. Because you have some of the fact sheets we handed out here. We also have a pamphlet booklet that gives you what's called Understanding the Benefits, kind of gives you an overview of the programs that we provide. So that's no charge. That's right here. So I'm glad I answered some of your questions. So now we have questions on the line.
Okay, Danielle, do we have anyone on the phone who wants to ask a question?
If you would like to ask a question at this current time, please hit pound 5. This will allow you to unmute your line and ask the question. Again, if you have questions, please hit pound 5. Thank you.
I'm not hearing anything. Can we just go ahead and ask?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, this has to do with the Part B and retired military again. We're one of those categories where we don't have a choice. We have to go on Part B, being military retired, at 65. But in my case, my full retirement age is 66. The question I have is about the Part B premium. Is it possible to go ahead and enroll in the Part B at 65, have them take that Part B premium out of my benefits? Does that lock my benefit in at that level, or will I still get the full benefit when I do turn 65 or 66?
Great question, and thank you for that. If you were to file for benefits during the time that you file for the Medicare Part B, yes, you would be reduced. For example, the 1 year, and let's say if your full retirement age was 66 flat or 66 and 4 months, you're going to have 12 or 16 month reduction factor, and that is a permanent reduction. So one of the options that you may have, if let's say you've continued to work, now I would recommend that, and you may want to look into, you may have looked into this with the TRICARE. If you're still physically working, is it mandated for you to take the Part B?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right. And is that the TRICARE for life, or is that the?
Yeah, TRICARE for life. And I was thinking my other option, obviously, is just pay the Part B premium out of pocket as opposed to benefit. The Medicare only.
Yeah, the premium actually would be billed quarterly from,
right.
I think it's the intermediary of that works with CMS.
Right.
So they would bill you quarterly. And,
okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. You bet.
Do we have any other questions on the phone? We're going to come back out to the audience. Does anyone have a question back here? Okay.
Okay, I'm going back to Medicare.
All right.
So I turned 65 last month, and I was just assuming that I would apply for all Medicare once I'm ready to retire from here, which isn't in the too distant future. But now you said that I should really apply for Part A?
Yeah, refuse the Part B.
And
it takes 10 minutes to do it on our Medicare-only part of the website.
Okay, is it on the Social Security website?
Yep.
Okay, so I should go ahead and do that now, even though I'm like...
Yeah, if you go to, and this is a great question for everybody else listening in and here in the audience, socialsecurity.gov/Medicare only. You go into there, it's about 4 screens, because I was one of the people that designed them. So I can, when I used to be in policy before I came to this component that I'm in, and it takes about like 10 minutes. It's going to ask you, do you want the Part A? You say yes. Then it says, are you still working? You say yes. And then when you get to the part, do you want the Part B? You say no. And it'll ask, are you still covered under group health plan? You would say yes. And then once that wraps up, you'll get your card in a couple of weeks in the mail. It'll just show A on it. and that's it.
Will there be just last question on that?
Yeah.
Will there be coordination between Medicare at that point and my current health coverage through the federal government?
Well, you'll let your federal...
Or is that up to me to coordinate?
You would need to inform personnel to let... Many times, usually, folks that are still in federal employment, all that, there's coordination between personnel and the health insurance plans that personnel works with in our agencies. So I check with our personnel office, see if you have to take any steps. Usually they have that kind of lined up because of many of us who decide to work beyond the age of 65. Because you'll have the Part A, you're in active employment, so the Part A is going to be your secondary coverage. And it won't be until you decide to actually retire, that you're getting close to that you would then get the form from us. You would type in SEP. Make sure you remember those letters, SEP form. You pull it up. Our personnel office here would fill it out, saying when you stop working and when your coverage would stop. And then after that, your coverage for Medicare Part B would start. And that's where you go into that. So I appreciate that. Thank you. We have another question here.
We do.
Okay.
Oh, here.
Hi, I have a couple questions, and the first one is a takeoff on the Medicare question.
Okay.
If you elect not to take Medicare Part A while you're working, and it's going to be years down, number one, is the deduction in your paycheck going to be any less if you take the Medicare? And if you don't take the Medicare, I'm assuming you do have a choice. Is there going to be a penalty or anything? I know it's free, but...
Yeah, there's no, on the Part A, there's no penalty. It's the issue of, wanting, when it comes to filing for your Medicare, just, having everything in place for the Part B section so you can do your special enrollment. I mean, you do have that option if you... Now, as far as your paycheck-wise, because the A, like you said, is free, there's not going to be any deduction, as far as taking it at the age 65 or later on filing for the Medicare both at one shot. It's more of in the process as far as just having everything in place. More than likely, your health insurance company, through the employer, will say, have you signed up for Medicare? And some may have a mandate for it. I'm not sure, because each health insurance, has their own bureaucracies that may require. So from our purpose, we encourage it. Can't force you, but we encourage it. And I always defer to check with the health insurance company, because they're the ones that'll say, well, if you don't take your Part A, we're going to charge you more on your health insurance.
Okay, but if you don't sign up at 65, you can sign up at 70 if you want to work to your 70 or whatever, right? And there's no penalty or anything?
Yeah, as far as the Part A is concerned, if you have, and if you're covered under group health plan, we'll just do everything at that time.
Okay, and just check with the health plan, because I know, and when I took care of my parents, I know Medicare is supposed to be the second payer. But many times with my parents, their health insurance company said Medicare is the first payer, and the doctors that they got sometimes are not the doctors that we wanted for them. And that's what concerns me.
Exactly.
Okay, the other question I have is delaying your retirement until you, your Social Security until you retire. And you mentioned that in April, May, you get an extra 20 or whatever it is amount of money increase because you're still contributing to Social Security. How does that play out? Because there's a big difference between what you get when you're 66 and what you will get when you're 70. And you're putting in a big chunk of money every month. But if you're only getting 20 to, I think one of my friends said they get maybe $40 or $50 a month, it seems to me you're never going to make that amount that if you wait until you're 70, because you've been collecting. Is that correct?
That's correct. When you bring up the point as far as the way with delayed retirement credits works, you're looking at approximate 8% per year of almost like interest, if you want to look at it that way, that we're paying you more for delaying it. So in essence, you add it up as over 20-something% added to your monthly benefit, versus if you started collecting at an unreduced rate at full retirement age but continue to work, and we do the recomps, is really because it's eliminating some of those 0 years or lower year earnings that you've had in the past. So it's more, we're pretty much computing an unreduced benefit to pay a little more, or even of someone that was reduced because it replaced a lower year, but not necessarily that extra interest that a delayed retirement credit contributes to an individual's benefit waiting to the age of 70. Or if they, let's say they didn't do it at age 70, they did it at 68, they're still going to get that extra year of delayed retirement credit added to the record, at least approximately 8%. So those are the financial options, financial decisions, you know, an individual has to make. Is it worth, you know, for me to wait? You know, what's the difference going to be? You know, what's in it for me? What's going to be, you know, and you know, questions of health and family history and all, you know, those things play a role. So we'd like to defer to the individual consumer to make that decision of what's going to be best for them. We provide the information, lay it all out to them, provide the tools and the calculators, and help along the way. But that's one of those ultimate decisions. Is it, you know, worth going $20 if I continue to work, or wait for the extra interest on my record?
Okay, and thank you. And I have one more question.
Sure.
This is back to Medicare only. It's Medicare Part B.
Mm-hmm.
If you choose to wait on Medicare Part B, what is the penalty?
10% for each year. If you're not covered under a group health plan and actively working. So that's how that would work.
So in other words, when I retire, if I still have my group health plan, I can wait until forever to pick up on Part B if I want to?
If
Or do I have to do it when I retire? I mean, even though I'm still going to be getting...
If you retired from federal employment, let's say, and
I
you
continue
have
my health insurance, the federal.
You will be subject to the penalty because you're not actively working. So
And what is the penalty?
10% for
10%?
each year that's refused.
For each year that is refused.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Two more over here.
No, we have one question here, one question back there.
Part of my 35 years of highest earnings is 7 years spent overseas working, and that wasn't long enough to be in, fully vested in a pension plan.
Mm-hmm.
So can I buy into my Social Security benefit?
Now,
Benefit?
which country? Were
UK.
You? UK. We do have several agreements with. I forgot the term. It just slipped my mind off my. And I'll send you the link to that. We have agreements with various countries where if you paid into another system, another Social Security system, we have country agreements where we would look at, and sometimes they'll credit, depending on how many years you paid into each system, it'll either go, crediting your Social Security record, or if you were more in that system but paid enough into here, us crediting there. It's part of the country agreements that we have under each Social Security system. So I'll send that information to you. So if you can stand by for a minute after that, I'll give you the information, because our Office of International Operations actually takes care of that processes individual claims who have vested or worked for an international company or worked overseas, but also paid into the Social Security system, and they can get credited and part of that two-country agreement. I know we have UK, Mexico, I'm thinking a couple other countries. I think Germany is another one. I remember Germany. And I want to say either Greece and Australia, but not too sure. So I know the couple of the European ones that I just mentioned are correct. So I'll send that link out as well, and I'll make sure to get that information to you, and also share with anybody else that's interested in the audience. We have another question back here.
Actually, I just want to be sure I understand this correctly.
Sure.
So if you're age 65 and you're actively employed, and the employer that you work for carries your health insurance, then you do not have to apply for Part B at that point.
At that point, you
Right.
would.
However, if I'm not actively employed by the employer that carries my health insurance and I turn 65, most likely the health insurance that I carry, they're going to ask me to apply for Part B anyway,
Yeah.
because they no longer want to be primary.
That's correct.
Okay.
And then, the other twist to that I get is, let's say I retire, but my spouse hasn't retired. Can I go under their health insurance plan instead of, my retirement and having to sign on the B? And that's another option. Just one of the individuals.
They would then have to apply for Medicare Part B.
They
Even
could.
if they're under like say in my situation, it's me and my husband, he's going to be 65, okay? And so he's carried under my health insurance, which is not the federal government health insurance, okay? And so when he turns 65, the insurance that I carry through another retirement is going to say, hey, even though you're carried under your wife who is still actively employed, not with this employer, you have to apply for Medicare Part B because we're not going to be primary anymore.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah. Thank you for that, for asking that. We appreciate it. I believe we have another question over here.
Can you speak to CSRS and CSRS offset?
Sure. So the question is specifically about we're talking about CSRS offset. Now, with the CSRS offset, there are individuals who, let's say, I'll give you a scenario, and this is something you definitely want to ask your personnel office. Let's say, I have a colleague actually of mine specifically I work with right now. He worked for the federal government between 1960 through 1979. He was CSRS. He left the federal government, worked for a university as a coach through 92, then got picked up for Social Security. So because he was in the system before 83, he was allowed to go back into CSRS. But on the guidelines, if you're strictly CSRS, you pay 7% into the system. When you CSRS offset, you pay 0.8% into the CSRS system. Therefore, the CSRS pension is the one that gets reduced because you're actually paying Social Security taxes once you came back into the system. So you're not necessarily reduced on the Social Security amount because when you came back, and of course, we're talking about a year span. I'm here trying to give you a long history here. The individual paid enough into Social Security so that they don't have the issue, but their CSRS pension offset gets offset a small amount. I was talking to one of the person. I said, "Is it that much of a difference?" And she indicated it's no comparison to how the windfall elimination provision works when it comes to Social Security. That it works out pretty well. So if you want more specific information as far as how it affects your case scenario, the personnel office would be able to, or the benefits officer would be able to sit with you and do those comps. So if you create a My Social Security account, which I encourage, pull up your earnings record because the benefit officer is going to need that when they check out that and do the comp for you. So do we have any questions on the line or here? And if not, we can wrap up if that's fine with you, Dr. Holmes. Oh.
Question on the line?
Okay.
Could you explain the coverage if you reach full retirement age at 60 between the minimum Social Security at 62 and the gap between 60 and 62?
Okay, are you talking about under FERS?
Yes.
Okay, so for FERS, for individuals who are going into filing for retirement and they can't collect Social Security because they haven't reached the 62, FERS does pay a supplemental benefit. What that amount is all depends on what your I know they do a calculation, so I would recommend checking with your personnel office to see what that amount's going to be. And then at age 62, that supplement from your first pension would drop off. And then it's because you're already eligible for the Social Security benefit at a reduced rate. So the question becomes, is it worth to file at 62 for the reduced amount? Or should I wait to a later age to collect the higher amount from Social Security? So those are, a financial decision you would have to make on that part and decide what's going to work for you. But the supplement part, I would recommend, pulling up, doing the My Social Security account so you can pull up your earnings record, what your monthly benefit is going to be at 62 for retirement age 70. Sit down with your benefit officer, look at what's going to be your first pension and what that supplement's going to be. So to determine whether or not is it worth it for you when that supplement falls off to just wait to get a higher benefit from Social Security after the age of 62, or is it in your financial interest to do it at 62 at a permanent reduced amount?
So the amount considered Social Security in the offset until you get to 62 carries forward. They don't recalculate what you would get at 62, so you get your separate retirement annuity check.
Yeah,
the separate Social Security check?
The Social Security, yes, separate from the first pension. The supplement that first pays out is just because of the fact Social Security can't pay you before the age of 62. So let's say you retired at age 59 or 60, the FERS is going to pay you a supplemental benefit, and then at 62 that'll drop off, but it has no bearing on your Social Security. The decision on when to file for your Social Security will be up to you if you want to do it at 62 or beyond.
And does, this may be a little off the scope here, but if I were to semi-retire at 60, my private insurance would carry forward, the employer-based insurance would carry forward, and I could opt to continue that. But then the rules that I'm hearing about at 65, you have to get Part A, and they'll probably talk you into Part B at that point. Considering that I'm not employed between 60 and 65, what happens?
Well, that won't be an issue because you're not eligible for the Medicare Part A and Part B until 65. So you'll just be going in as a regular enrollee with no penalty or any issue because you're going to meet the age of 65, which is the eligibility requirement, and you sign up for the A and B.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Boston. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. And we just want to thank Alfredo.
All right, thank you very much. I hope I answered
for a
the
wonderful
questions.
Session on today about planning.
And
for
like
Social
I said,
Security
after
retirement.
this session, it'll be tomorrow. I'm trying later today. I'm going to pull those links together. I'll work with Dr. Holmes to get that information to everybody because you'll have the contacts.
Yes.
So I'll share those various links. And my contact information will be there. So if there's a link I then provide to you or a question I then address, feel free to contact me. Because unfortunately, if I'm not at my desk, they got me tied into this BlackBerry here. And if they don't have me tied here, they got the laptop at my house. So I'm one way or another, I'm connected. Thank you again, everybody. Appreciate your time. Thank you,
you
everybody
all
on the
for
line.
coming. Bye-bye.